Hello, I'm Amber Hulse, an associate at Dhillon Law Group, a state senator in South Dakota, and one of the youngest women ever elected to the South Dakota legislature. People are sometimes surprised when they learn that part of my journey into law and public service ran through two worlds that don't always get taken seriously together: pageants and Washington, D.C. Both shaped me in ways that still matter every single day. When I later moved to Washington, D.C., that confidence from pageants mattered. In D.C., you're often the youngest person in the room, the only woman, or the only person from a rural state like South Dakota. I served in the White House as an intern, clerked for senior elected officials, and worked alongside people who had been in public life or public service for decades. Here's my advice. Don't downplay your background, whether it's pageants, athletics, debate, agriculture, or something else entirely. Those experiences matter. They make you unique. They teach discipline, resilience, and how to perform under scrutiny. And finally, don't apologize for your values. In fact, the legal profession needs more women who are prepared, principled, and confident enough to bring their full selves into the room. Today at Dhillon Law Group, I'm honored to work on election and political law issues that go to the heart of our democracy. It's demanding, but it's meaningful work. Let's shift a little bit from my story to yours. These are the questions that I hear most from young women who want to go into law. Number one, what part of your background helped you the most in your legal career? I would say competing in the Miss America organization was one of the things that made me the lawyer that I am today. There's so many ways that being Miss South Dakota compares to the life of an elected official, and I knew that at a very young age. I think that the long hours, the driving all over the state, having to be prepared and be on your feet were skills that I wouldn't have learned just from attending law school itself. And quite frankly, much of law school is just learning the content of the law. It's not teaching you how to be a lawyer. And it's the background and the things that you do and the experiences that you have outside of actual law school that are what make you into the lawyer that you will be one day. And for me, that was the Miss America organization and doing pageants. I wouldn't be able to survive a trial if it wasn't from my pageant background. Number two, how did pageants prepare you for law and public scrutiny? I remember when I was Miss South Dakota during COVID, there were some really not nice things that came out about several elected officials around the state. And then we also had a public campaign for a drug addiction issue in South Dakota. And they were taking senior level elected officials' faces and making memes out of them. And somehow my face also got thrown into the loop as being Miss South Dakota. And I think that was the first of many things that were to happen to me with public scrutiny and just people being awful keyboard warriors on social media. But, you know, the reality is if you're going to fight for your values and belief systems in today's society, you're going to be attacked. And quite frankly, if you're not getting attacked, you're not probably doing anything that's important because people are going to throw rocks at things that shine. And so that experience in pageants, being on an elevated stage or being in the spotlight, really did prepare me at a young age, at 19, 20 years old, to then at 25 and 26 years old as a state senator, understand what I was in for. And now even in my private career here at Dhillon Law, you know, we face public scrutiny all the time, and people are facing bar complaints and everything else just for being conservative or fighting for conservative values. And so really pageants prepared me for that by being in the public spotlight. Number three, why did you choose election and political law? Well, it's funny, actually. I really believe in that quote, made for such a time as this from Esther in the Bible. But in 2020, when we saw what happened in the election, many people got inspired to go into election and political law. But I wanted to go into this field far before the year of 2020 and the 2020 election, because I saw how important it was, because if the rules of the game are changed, then the entire election is not ethical. And so I worked in the Secretary of State's office in South Dakota as an intern, and I saw how important it was that these state level staffers in states all across the country, how critical their role is in ensuring that the election is administered properly, and that we needed more people that had legal backgrounds and law degrees to come in and fight for those issues, because it is so local and so specific. And so I was really excited to have the opportunity to go to Washington, D.C. as a White House intern initially, but then the chance to go to law school in the place that laws were made, where I could get a tailored legal education in classes that were specific to election and political law, was the whole reason why I went to Georgetown, to then turn around and go home and make sure that I was working in places like South Dakota and other states now around the nation with Dhillon Law to ensure that our elections are properly carried out. And I say this all the time, that no other issue that's important to you, whether it's, religious freedoms, whether it's civil rights, whether it's, you name that, the economy, none of that matters if the elections that pick the people to put those policies into place aren't being run properly. And number 4, what does mentorship look like at Dhillon Law Group? I say this all the time, Dhillon Law Group is more like a family than it is a law firm. Our firm is incredible when it comes to knowing that you have a life outside of your job at this firm, because everyone that works here has something else that makes them incredible, whether it be, their incredible family or some other thing that they do in public service like myself. And so while I'm juggling being a, newer, younger associate at the same time as being a state senator, this firm is so supportive of me doing both and actually gives me cases and things that I can work on that I've written bills about in South Dakota, and then can turn around and use that expertise to help our clients. And so the level of tailored uniqueness that my superiors give me, and really the level of work that you get to do with this firm is incredible. At such a young age, you're writing briefs that are ending up in the hands of federal judges. You're not doing doc review for hundreds of hours. You're the one writing the things, and you're the one getting to go up in court. Just this last week, I was in a federal trial, and that's just not something that usually happens at other law firms. And so the boutique nature of this firm, and also just the unique nature of the people at this firm, really create a wonderful environment where you really get to hit the ground running. It's sink or swim, and it's very difficult. You're learning as you go, and often very high profile, highly watched cases. But if that's something that you're interested in, this is the place for you.